people who have been the victim of a romance scam, or perhaps you yourself at one time or another uh, let your best wishes get the better of your good judgment. Well, don't be ashamed if you have. It's a pretty common phenomenon, unfortunately, and we are, I guess, all of us, to one extent or another, somewhat vulnerable to a good romance scammer. Now, I touched on this subject last year in a kind of a short phone video I did on my way out the door. But I was talking about this woman that I share an apartment with here, and we are best of friends. She's my best friend, not a romance, not my idea. She put me in the friend zone many years ago, and that's where I've stayed. And all things considered, perhaps that's for the best. But that doesn't mean that she has no interest in romance at all. And she got herself ensnared in a romance scam several years ago. I noticed that she was spending less time in the living room with me and more time online with this boyfriend of hers. And so I began asking some questions, and I found out that, well, she had never actually spoken to him in real time. There was always email exchanges, messages, but never face to face. Nothing where she's seeing a face and a pair of lips moving in real time. So I realized what was going on, and I tried to explain to her what was going on. And you know what? There was nothing I could tell her that would disabuse her of what she wanted to believe. This fellow that she had met online was everything she wanted in a man. She put her hopes and dreams into his reality. And there was nothing I could say that was going to change that. There was no evidence I could bring that would change her mind about him. There was no logical argument I could make. Her hopes was that this was real. And as long as there was a chance that it could actually be real, she didn't want to hear what I had to say. Well, at some point, she eventually, had to deal with reality that her hero from overseas didn't exist really. And she made her peace with that. And we never spoke of it again. That was several years ago. It's embarrassing to her, so I don't bring it up. However, I've noticed that a lot of the people that I've argued with about free grace, about sola fide, about Calvinism, these people, in the same way, do not want to hear and cannot hear arguments against their beliefs because it is what they want to believe is true. Just like my dear friend, her heart was invested in a fantasy. Some of you free grace people, in fact, all of you free grace people, you sola fide easy believers, you once saved, always saved, you devotees of Jihad Johnny Calvin. There is no evidence I could show you that would disabuse you of your delightful fantasy, is there? There is no argument rigorously logical enough to dissuade you that's going to deprive you of what you want. Just like my roommate could not be deprived of her dream, you are not going to be deprived of yours simply because there is hard evidence against it and logical arguments that ruin that dream. You don't care any more than she did because there's a chance that what you're hoping for might be true, isn't it? As long as there's a chance, Well, then you can put aside all those other naysayers. I have explained in the past year how John 3:16 is not talking about belief, it's talking about allegiance. I've went through it with you. I've showed you why. You don't care. You wouldn't care if Jesus himself told you that John 3:16 is not about belief, it's about allegiance to his name. I've went through Romans chapter 4, verse 5, that talks about Abraham and why believing. Abraham believed God and God accredited to him as righteousness. I've showed you why believing is a mistranslation. Abraham didn't believe God, but he was faithful to God. And I proved that to you in a couple of different videos, and you still don't care. You don't care any more than my roommate cared that I said her boyfriend in Iraq is a figment of her imagination. Well, I'll tell you what, Abraham believing something is a figment of your imagination. I defy you to tell me what Abraham believed. I defy you to tell me why God should care that Abraham is so credulous. God doesn't care about anybody's credibility. He does care about your fidelity to his son. I've tried to explain to you that Ephesians 2, 8, and 9 is talking about salvation in this life from estrangement from God and not about salvation from hell. I've showed you that in a 40-minute video. I took you through the original language. I made strong arguments, fact-based, logical arguments. You don't care. You've been scammed. You're believing what you want to believe, just like my roommate did. Just like all romance scam victims will believe what they want. And you're going to believe what you want until you land in the lake of fire. Then you're going to say, oh, I guess I got that wrong. Yeah, you did. What more shall I say? Can I tell you about the Philippian jailer in Acts chapter 16, verse 30 and 31? Shall I tell you again why when Paul says, believe on the Lord Jesus Christ and you will be saved? Believe is a mistranslation. It means give faith to the master, the Lord Jesus Christ. Shall I go into the arguments for that? No, I'm not going to. I will spare you because you don't care. You've been romance scammed. You've been romance scammed to think that all I have to do is think those wonderful thoughts, those warm and fuzzies about Jesus, and I'm going to heaven. I don't have to pick up my cross every day and follow that long and hard road that leads to life. No, all I ever had to do was just think those warm fuzzies about Jesus, and now it's all over with. It doesn't matter what I do. Because if I have to worry about what I'm going to do, that would be a work salvation plan. Well, I've told you, somebody's interrupting me by phone here. Be quiet, phone. Hey, I'm on YouTube. Be quiet. Stop. Stop. What do you do with phones like this? Ignore them, I guess. Well, I guess I'll edit this part out. Or maybe not. I don't know. Maybe it's too amusing. Again, you've been romance scammed if you think that all you ever had to do was simply think those warm and fuzzies about Jesus, and you're going to heaven. You don't have to sacrifice anything. You don't have to be under anyone's authority. All you have to do is just believe the general outline, Make a faith commitment to the mega narrative, and there you're done. You're going to paradise. You know what? If you believe that, there's a romance scammer out there waiting for you. You've been conned by the Christian equivalent of a romance scam. You've been shown the gospel that you want to see, and you're hearing the words you want to hear, and you won't hear anything else. You're not about to hear anything else. Again, I could show you again what John 3:16 means. I could make the argument again for why Ephesians 2:8 and 9 is talking about salvation from estrangement from God in this life and not about salvation from hell. Same thing with Titus chapter 3, verse 5. That word saved is better translated cured. And it's talking about cured for what was wrong in Titus 3:3. It's not talking about heaven and hell. I can go through it all again. I'm not going to. I'm not going to wear you out. I'm not going to wear me out. You've been romance scammed. You're believing what you want to believe. Now, because I care about my roommate, I had a moral obligation to tell her that she was being robbed. She was being treated badly, being made a fool of, and that she was going to suffer some bad consequences if she didn't wake up. Well, I've just told you what I was morally obliged to tell you. You've been conned. And you're going to suffer some bad consequences if you don't wake up. Salvation is by faithfulness alone, and it will come on Judgment Day if you stay faithful to King Jesus between now and then. Okay? There is no free grace. There is no once saved, always saved. You are righteous every day you pick up your cross and follow King Jesus. Doesn't mean you have to be sinless. No, no one ever will be. Doesn't mean you have to be holy enough to get into heaven. No. It means that when all is said and done, it was Jesus's life because he was your Lord. That's what's going to be decided on Judgment Day. And you can believe that, or you can believe what these romance scammers have been telling you about Christianity. You decide. Thanks for visiting.